Okay. All right, Laurengrace here, and welcome to the Australian Festival of Sound Healing Melbourne Frequencies Getting to Know You web series. My guest today is Phoebe Dubar, also known as Iksre. She's a classically trained vocalist, a violinist, a music producer who studied at the Victorian College of Arts, and she's worked as a professional musician since under a variety of guises. She also spent a decade working in events and marketing at Crown Limited, Sacred Heart Mission in St. Kilda, and Fed Square Party Ltd, and running a successful corporate wedding band for the past 10 years. So basically, she's got it all going on, which we're going to find out in our conversation today. Her love of yoga, meditation, and fascination with the healing power of sound saw her spend 2 years studying for a diploma with the Sound Healing Academy in Cornwall, UK. And she's joining me now to talk to me and to educate you at home about her healing work, her sound skills, and we're going to talk about her musical creations, because let me tell you this, they are very unique and very interesting. So thank you so much for joining me, Iksre. I'm so happy to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So before we start off, I know our listener at home is like, Iksre, what kind of a name is that? Where did that sort of start from? So maybe you could take us a little bit, into the past. Let's go down history or memory lane for a minute, and maybe you can tell us a bit about how that name sort of happened for you, or where that name came from.
Yeah, for sure. I guess the whole project, so I sort of do two things. I do sound baths with sort of more traditional sound bath acoustic setup, but then I've also got my ambient project, which, I've got songs on Spotify and everything. And I do that live as well too. In fact, you can see my setup. I'm practicing for a show on Saturday that I'm doing with a yoga teacher. But the project came incredibly organically. It was actually a complete accident, which we're going to have time to talk about, but very happy accident. And then I sort of wrote the whole first album in, 20-minute chunks in between my infant daughter having naps and stuff. And then when it came time to, suddenly I had all these songs and I'm like, oh, I should release this. And it took me forever. I actually stopped my marketing brain from stepping in until the very end when everything was ready. And then I'm like, oh, I'll come up with a name. And at that point, I was walking a lot, as young mothers do, and walking, around with the pram and everything. And I just kept saying prisms in, stop signs, in windows, just reflections and stuff like that. And I was like, I keep seeing rainbows everywhere. And then I'm like, okay, so I'm walking along, I'm like, Iksre, Iksre, that's kind of cool. And then I came home to my husband that night, who was across all the songs, and I was like, what do you think about this for a name? It's kind of ridiculous. And he's like, nah, I love it. So it stuck. And I kind of like the way that it kind of sounds like X-ray, but it's like X-ray inside eye. Yeah, it's like, I sort of see it as, it's almost like a musical X-ray of me.
That's so cool. So do you find that, when you're performing as Iksre versus being Phoebe, that you maybe take on a bit of a different sort of character? Like when you're talking about, the name Iksre, for me, I feel like that maybe invokes almost a different personality or different qualities. Do you kind of step into this alter ego, or is it really just a different name and you're still the same person?
No. One thing, and it was funny, a yoga teacher mate sent me a message yesterday saying, I love how authentic you are in what you do. And I was like, oh, that's really nice, because it is seriously, like, it still blows me away that other people want to listen to that music and that it resonates with them, because it is so intensely personal. I mean, the first album, all the songs on that, I pretty much wrote almost as a bit of a panacea to me being sleep deprived and exhausted with a new baby. And it was almost more just, fun for me, because I was so used to, prior to having Stells, I was so used to doing so many gigs and performing and just being so involved in recording, so involved in music. And so suddenly it was like, stop, now's time to be a mother. And I thought, I have to still create. So yeah, the music is deeply, as I said, I don't write it for anyone but myself. And then when I perform, I'm very much myself. I actually, if anything else, like I put on more of a persona if I'm having to do another type of vocal gig or something. That's very much, you know, you put on the makeup and you get dressed up and everything, whereas this is how I dress normally, and that's pretty much what I wear for an Iksre gig. So yeah.
Do you find that in a way you're maybe sort of channeling the music from within your soul? I mean, I guess when I was reading your bio at the beginning, you were talking about, you know, doing weddings and stuff. I would imagine there are a lot of covers in that. So not to say that you can't feel the, you know, the vibe of that music, but, you know, it kind of sounds to me like when you're speaking that you really are putting a piece of your heart and your soul and your spirit out there for the world to see.
Yeah, totally. And I still do that with weddings as well. Like the songs that we do, I'm doing less and less weddings because I'm just doing too many other sound healing gigs. I'm doing very, very few weddings these days. But yeah, even with that band, which we've been together for 10 years or close to 10 years, we don't do songs that a lot of people do. We do songs that we love. We've kind of got a bit of a rule where if someone hates something that we're doing, like someone in the band doesn't like a song, we dump it. And, you know, so we're we do songs that people don't normally do, and people will come and see us and go, oh my God, I can't believe you played Thundercat or, you know, Tame Impala or something like that. So that was still very much, but that said, what I'm doing with Iksre is 100%, literally, as I said, you know, it really just comes from nowhere. There's a single, the first single from my new album that's coming out, like I just listen to it and I just go, oh my God, that's exactly an audio representation of how I was feeling on that morning when I went out and I recorded the field recording, and then I came home and I added viola and vocals and synths and everything to it, and I just hear it and I just go, that song just sounds to me like that morning and exactly the feeling that I was trying to convey. And it'll just blow me away if anybody else feels that way, because it's like that was such a specific time and such a specific feeling for me. So yeah,
I love that. Well, I guess musical is personal, and as you would know, everybody is going to interpret it depending on their mood and the filter that they're listening to it through. So I guess I was kind of interested when you were talking earlier about creating your first album. You know, you said you had to kind of almost compartmentalize, put the marketing brain to the side for a minute. Is that because, you know, you were sort of thinking for a minute on a commercial standpoint, you're like, how can I sell this? You know, what kind of market is there for this sort of music? And you had to kind of almost put that to the side. Is that why you needed to make that kind of adjustment, I suppose?
Yeah, it was kind of like I'd come from my last original project prior to that, which I sort of wound up just as I was starting Iksre, was a 3-piece sort of electronic act called Passerine, and we toured a lot and we had a pretty rigid release schedule and stuff like that. So for me, it was more around with that band, we were always, you know, looking ahead to the next single and like, let's put a single out, let's try and get it on Triple J, let's try and, you know, hit up all the community radio stations, let's tour, let's blah, blah, blah. You know, it was always this real, you know, and towards the end, that part of things, you know, it's a big deal, and it's like it's quite stressful as well too. And so I was determined that this project, I was like, every time my brain started thinking, oh, this could be a single, I'd be like, no, stop thinking about that. I just wanted to create this whole body of work and get it mastered. I do all the mixing and all the production, but I get someone else to master it. And I was like, not until it's mastered and I'm 100% happy with it. And even then, you know, every time artwork started creeping into my head, I'm like, no, don't think about it. And it was so, yeah, it was, and it was actually a really good process, because then at the end of it, I'm like, cool, I've got this whole thing and now I'm going to do something with it, which is really nice. And now it's really good. I've got a label.
Sorry, I cut you off there.
So they can do something. Oh, no, I was going to say, now I've got a label who I work with, Hush Hush, over in the States. They're based in Seattle, and Alex is just the most beautiful person, and he's so great. Like with the latest album, which is coming out in a couple of months, I pretty much sent him all the demos and was like, just tell me what we're doing with this. You pick the singles, you do all that stuff. So it's really nice that I can actually step back and he can just do that stuff. Because yeah, again, I just want to create a body of work, and then he can worry about picking out which ones are commercially viable and stuff.
You know what kind of came to me when you were speaking there was that it sounds to me that you were really focused on being in the present moment and really being where you were. I think that a lot of us sort of default to kind of the next thing, and like you were talking about the singles or the artwork or all these other kind of little bits and pieces that really don't matter within the creation process. Do you sort of have some tips or some tricks that you kind of use yourself to help you to be in the moment and to quiet your mind from sort of getting ahead of itself?
I'm always, that's the thing, and that's the thing that I do struggle with. It's good. I do have to work with it. I work every day. I meditate twice a day. I've had a Vedic practice that I've had for pre-Stella, so like probably 5 years or something like that now, and yoga as well too. If I find myself just getting too up in my head, just even just 15 minutes spent in a handful of yin postures is just enough to just shut my brain up a little bit. Grounding as well too, like even just walking out, we've got like just a little patch of grass just in the backyard. It's only tiny, but it's enough that even if it's cold, I just go out in bare feet and just stand on it and just go, oh, here we go. And just being in nature, I mean, that's my biggest thing. And that's where all my inspiration comes from. Pretty much every song always comes from me going out into the bush or to the beach or somewhere in nature and recording some kind of field recording. And sometimes the field recording actually ends up getting stripped out of the song, but it's usually where the song starts. So yeah, for me, being in nature is where I'm most fully present. Yeah.
I love that. So I know that you're a sound healer and you're also a musician. And I guess I'm kind of wondering if you think you could be a sound healer without also being a musician, or do you have to have that sort of musical tenacity or that musical kind of inclination to be able to be a successful sound healer?
No, I don't think so. I think the biggest thing, I'm actually running a little one-day workshop, not this Saturday, but next. And it's mostly yoga teachers coming along, a couple of sort of Reiki healers, a few other people I don't know, but mostly yoga teachers. And the idea is being, to help them learn how to play Himalayan and crystal bowls and do a couple of really simple vocal techniques that they can then use when they're, their classes are in Shavasana or, during the class. And the biggest thing I want to give to them is that you don't have to be a musician to learn how to listen. And as long as you can really start to actually use your ears and use them to actually understand frequency and to actually listen and not just grab a bowl and just go bang bang bang, and just like hit it because you think that but to actually listen, to actually go, okay, that's dying off now, I should strike it again. And actually anybody can do that. People go, oh, I don't have, I've got a terrible ear. But, it's easy for some people. I'm lucky in that I've always been drawn to music ever since I was tiny. It's just something that I've always been able to do. But then, I've got one of my guitarists, my favourite guitarist, Diego. He is the most incredible guitarist. And he actually only started learning when he was about 17 or something, and just worked really, 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 really hard at it. And so, it's a skill that anybody can learn. But I think, of course, it makes it easier if you've got a musical understanding, because you can understand the different intervals and how they work. Like I know when I did my training, the people who weren't musicians, they had to learn in a way a little bit of the musical language to understand, which bowls should be played together to create, a healing interval versus, something that's releasing or, energizing. And for them, they had to learn that stuff, but it's like a language. You just spend some time, you work at it, you learn it, but the ear, like anybody can learn to use their ears to listen.
And I guess if they use some of the techniques you talked about as well to be present, they'll be able to listen and sort of get out of their head where they might be thinking about tapping the crystal ball, in a second, I'm about to do this.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
exactly.
I guess.
And intention as well. Intention is so huge as well.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone today and saying, like, even with our words, if I turn around to you and go, you're looking lovely today, I really like that top, you're just like, whatever. Like, it's the intention just as much as the words. And this is like, you know, musical words. And if our intention behind it's going, oh, when's this class going to end? What am I going to have for lunch? You know, that kind of thing, versus I want to create a beautiful, restful sound that will help people drop into a shavasana. You know, it's gonna happen, come through.
How would you describe the sound healing that you do? Because I guess when you're talking, I do feel from you, I mean, I do feel your authenticity. I do get that. And I do feel like a lot of the things that you do is really about your feeling. I really just, you know, I know you're talking about listening, but, you know, when you're kind of talking, you're also invoking emotion. So for me, I feel that energy from you. So the sound healing that you do and that you work with people on, is that, you know, based a lot on feeling as well as sound? Is a lot about getting the sound to release from your body? Can you kind of talk to me a bit about that sort of side of your business or your life?
It's taking people on a journey, I guess. And like when I'm sitting down doing like a more, so you mean like the more traditional, like as in acoustic sound bath versus this sort of synthy setup?
Yeah, I guess. Yes.
Yeah. I guess it's about taking people on a journey and, you know, getting people to help slow their brain waves down. I mean, we're all, particularly in this COVID world, you know, I'm so grateful that I'm working in this area now, because people need this now. People need to be able to switch off and actually just come into a room for an hour and just completely switch off and go somewhere else and just really slow down. And so that's my biggest thing, you know. I'm just, people, you know, when there's a room full of people, it's just about really just being gentle and really just, you know, taking them to this really gentle place, and then, you know, maybe allowing them to release a little bit and stuff. But yeah, for me, it's really just about taking them on a sonic journey and to have, and just going with my gut as well too, like my intuition. The more and more I do it, the more and more I trust my intuition. You know, I usually, for example, I've always waited until towards the end of a sound bath to start playing gong, for example. But the other day I did one with a Reiki healer, and for some reason towards the start of the sound bath, I was just like, oh, I just couldn't get out of my head. I kept going gong, gong, and I kept looking at it and thinking no, and I was like, stuff it. And so I just went with that, and everybody said it was just amazing. You could just feel the energy in the room, just really just, it was amazing. So I think that it's a combination of both listening musically, and I see my setup almost like a little mini orchestra. So I played in orchestras for years, and it's about that contrast, the dynamic contrast, but also the frequency contrast as well. And you know, not just, yeah, it's taking people on a journey, but yeah, going with my intuition big time.
How have you seen, you know, the work that you've done, like the sound baths or the music that you've shared with people, you know, help them or affect them?
Oh, so many ways. I think some of the most beautiful feedback I've had, actually from a friend who hasn't actually been to one before, and I sent her a recording recently, and she was like, and I haven't known this person for very long, and I sent her a recording saying, oh, this is, you know, this is what I do. And she was just like, she said to me the day after, she's like, oh my God, she said, I don't think I've ever felt that relaxed my whole life. She said, I don't know what happened. She said, and I was just walking around just in this happy daze for a couple of hours afterwards. And she just couldn't get over it. And I was like, isn't that amazing? But the power of sound, and that was just a recording. It was a really good recording that a friend had done. But I just thought, and I thought, isn't that just amazing that sound can do that? But in the same regard, I just felt so sorry for her that, you know, she's gone through so long without actually being able to access that deep state of relaxation. And another friend, or now friend, we've actually since become friends, but she reached out to me last year when we were in lockdown, and I was doing a lot of free sound baths on my Facebook page just during lockdown, and she reached out and said that her son, who I think at the time was about 12, 13, had been really struggling with, you know, anxiety and, you know, having sleep issues during lockdown. And he'd been doing the sound baths with her, and it had been helping him sleep and helping him really get over the anxiety. And I thought, isn't that unreal? Because she wasn't telling him, this will do this will help you, you know. He's a 12-year-old boy, you know, and really helping him.
That's so beautiful. It sounds to me that in a way music really is part of a self-care, self-love, you know, time to take time for you and be where you are kind of process. Or I guess it's really instrumental, no pun intended. And, you know, us kind of, you know, living an authentic life and, you know, experiencing, you know, life as we're meant to, which is blissful and peaceful and calm and without anxiety.
Exactly. And also listening to music that suits your mood as well too, like, you know, and even starting the day off with the right kind of music. Like I love listening to PBS, their radio show in the morning, The Breakfast Spread, particularly on a Friday, because he just plays like really fun, just disco and just fun music. And so we'll end up, me and my daughter, who's now almost 4, we'll just end up dancing in the kitchen. And I'm like, isn't that just the best way to start off? It could be a grey, miserable winter day and you can be just like dancing around in the kitchen and stuff. And it just makes you feel so much better. And just on the other hand, you know, we had this ritual when she was tiny that when we wanted to start chilling her out, we'd start putting on, you know, ambient, relaxing sort of music. Brian Eno's Thursday afternoon, we kept listening to on repeat. And that was like our, okay, cool, it's 6 o'clock, let's try and get her to start settling down music. And it always works. I actually played her that album for the first time in years the other night. I was like, do you remember this? And she's like, yeah. And I thought, man, she hasn't heard it since she's probably 1, but she remembered it.
Well, your child's clearly a genius.
I mean, I'm not going to lie, she's pretty special, but...
So what's your one song, if you had to choose one song to kind of get you amped up and get your day started, what would that song be?
Oh my God, my all-time favorite amp up song is LCD Sound System, Dance Yourself Clean. It's like this, I don't know if you know the song, it's like a 9 minute song that just goes on, and just the build up is like this. It's so slow, and then it just goes, and you're just like jumping around dancing.
I can conquer the world.
Pretty much. I was 8 months pregnant. Yeah, it was like a month before she was born. I was 8 months pregnant with her when they toured, and I went to see them at I think it was Rod Laver Arena. And I remember, because I was so massive and pregnant, and I was like, oh, I can't dance to every song, otherwise I'm going to be ruined by the end of the gig. And so I was like, right, I'm going to save myself for the best songs. And then that song started, and my best friend was down in the general admission area, and my husband and I were seated, and she texted me, she's like, oh, if you're dancing right now. And I'm like, yes.
That's so awesome. I love that so much. So I know you're going to be performing at the Australian Festival of Sound Healing, the Melbourne Frequencies, kicking off on November 6th and 7th at the Centre of View in Melbourne. What can people expect from your set? What are you most looking forward to?
Well, I'm doing this set, so more synths, and I can show you it's a bit of a mess at the moment. So there'll be viola, looped viola. That's all my sound healing gear in the corner, by the way. That's after a gig, so that's just kind of chucked over there. But there'll be basically a combination of synths and looped synths, viola, vocals, with field recordings underneath it. So it's basically my live music, my music that is on Spotify done live. So I will have released the new album by then. I think that's coming out October. Yeah, mid-October that'll be coming out. So there'll be some new songs in there as well. And I've done this set a bunch of times with yoga teachers where they've actually guided a class to it, and I'm doing one on Saturday as well with that. And then I've also done a few where it's been more people just listening. And so, yeah, people, I mean, that's the thing. If people want to move to it, they can roll out a mat and actually feel free to just, you know, just flow with the music, because it was very much designed for a yoga practice, that's for sure. And or they can just lie down and just go inward. Someone came up to me after the gig I did at Peninsula Hot Springs recently, and they said, "Oh my God, you're set." They said, "I just closed my eyes and I just went so deep for an hour." And I was like, cool, that's really good to know, because I know that that's very much the case with my sound baths, but it was nice to know that someone had that experience with the more synthy set as well. So yeah.
That's great. So you did talk about doing choose your own adventure. I like that. You did talk about doing free sound baths on your Facebook page during COVID. I know we're still dealing with that at the moment, but I was wondering how people can find out more if they can't wait till November, and where they can pick up any more information from you as it comes.
My Instagram is probably updated the most regularly. So Iksre, Instagram /Iksre, or Spotify. There's a bunch of music on there. I put out a new tune a couple of weeks ago, which a yoga teacher friend actually commissioned me to do. He kept asking me to release something that had more, Himalayan bowls in it, and for a yin yoga practice. And so he was like, "Oh, can I just pay you to do one?" And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I did one, and so that's up there now. It's like a 10-minute sort of little mini meditation called Breath of Heart. But all the other tunes are more what you'll sort of hear there. Instagram. Then I do a bunch of sound baths all over the place. I'm regularly at Warrior One, Morty, and Brighton. Also at Assembly in West Footscray. And then I do a bunch of other ones repeatedly, which are kind of scattered all over the place. So yeah, Linktree in my Instagram is the best spot to find out all about that.
Perfect. Well,
so looking forward to the festival.
It'll be
Thanks
great.
for having me.
Thank you so much. Look forward to hearing more from you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm off to practice now.